Welcome to the Pastor's Connection podcast, where we delve into the heart of ministry and explore the challenges and triumphs of pastoral life. Join us as we connect with inspiring leaders, share insightful stories, and equip one another with tools for effective ministry. Together, we can foster a community of support, encouragement, and growth in our calling. I am your host, Thomas Osterkamp, and I lead Beachside Community Church here in Palm Coast, Florida, and I help lead the Pastor's Connection Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Family Meeting. The Family Meeting exists to help you have the meaningful relationships that you desire in your marriage and family. Along with the podcast, Thomas and Lysandra offer books, devotionals, as well as speaking at marriage retreats and conferences, providing real, practical help for ministry families. Contact them at info@familymeeting.org to help the marriages and families in your church grow stronger today. Today's episode, we have back with us co-founder of the network, James Bell. James, glad to have you back on here. Always enjoy the time we get to spend together.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking and just catching up on what we have going on in our lives and the Pastor's Connection Network. James, for those who have hopped in since the last time you were on the podcast, could you just kind of remind us what your family dynamic is like, how many kids you got, married, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we have a crazy life. So with our dynamic, I'm actually in a home office. So if you hear any kids hollering in the background, you'll understand why. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I have five
What's
boys.
funny is literally right on cue. Right on cue. As soon as you said you might hear my kids, there they were. I love it. That's great.
Yeah. 5 kids and we homeschool. So and I'm home. And so I'll talk a little bit about that later. But we have 5 boys, Titus, Timothy, Tatum, Toby, and Theo. And ages from 13 all the way to 3. And so our life is crazy, but it's a lot of fun and it's messy, but we wouldn't trade it for anything. And then my wife, Susanna, we've been married almost coming up on 15 years. And so it's exciting. We've been pastoring First Baptist Church of Fenton for, this is our 10th year. So it's kind of crazy. It goes so fast. We've been in a revitalization for about 10 years now. And we've seen God do some amazing things, difficult, but amazing things. And so we're excited about the future there and what God has in store for the church. And and then the Pastor's Network, it's been awesome. It's been quite a journey, man. We started just kind of with an idea and then it just kind of blew up, and it's just been amazing to watch God work through it all.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. So I have 4 daughters, you have 5 sons, which I don't know anything about. And you've got all T names. Did that start with a family name? How did the whole 5 T's happen?
My poor kids, their childhood trauma when they're adults, it's going to be dad was a pastor and alliterated all of our names. And it is, it's going to be one of those childhood traumas that, you never want to pass that down. But I think the names, they're all TJBs. So
oh, really?
Initials. Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating.
I wish there was a cool story I could tell you, but why?
Okay, yeah, I was curious if it was hey, we named our first son after this person, and that's how it all happened. But
yeah, there's no.
I mean, I'm a Thomas, so I'm down with the T name. I think it's great. I think you did great. So
yeah, well,
go ahead.
My wife did say when we had kids, she'll deny this now. She'll deny it now, but it's true that. If we had boys, I would get to name them, and if we had girls, she would get to name them. But somehow that changed after we had a couple boys down the road.
He's like, I'm not getting a chance here.
Right,
that's funny.
Right, yeah. So
it is
that's
funny.
I say how it happened.
It's funny the things that you and your wife agree on before you get married or as you first get married. Because with us, it was, hey, if we have sons, there's certain things I'm going to do, like give the sex talk. I'm the one who's going to take them to the restroom, and just things like that. And if we have girls, she's going to do that. And so it literally ended up with 4 girls. She had to do all the sex talks, all the bathroom stuff. And I did change diapers when they were little, but so it's just kind of funny how that works out. And here you got 5 boys.
Yeah. She's always worried. She's like, I'm going to be that mother-in-law the rest of our life. So,
Yep.
with all boys.
Yep.
So,
Most
it's
definitely.
funny.
So you talked about your wife, Susanna, and I know she's been going through some health issues for quite a while now. For those who aren't aware, can you just kind of fill us in on what that situation like, how long it's been going on, what things are like right now, and what's up?
Yeah, it's been going on about 3 years. My last son, he had a lot of problems at birth. So it went from laboring for like 23 and a half hours to emergency
Mm,
C-section to the C-section didn't go well. They had to do an emergency hysterectomy, and they normally don't do that. And as they tried to, my wife they sewed her up from the C-section, and then as soon as they pulled her out of operating, her blood pressure just dropped. She went to white as a ghost, which now we understand. They knew then she had internal bleeding. So during the
mm.
C-section, they nicked like some main blood vessels in the uterine wall. So I'm not trying
Oh,
to get all
geez.
detailed, but then they had to do a full hysterectomy because they couldn't find where the bleeding was. She had we had to sign papers that life preserving measures, and then after all that she came
Wow.
back fine, but then she developed sepsis, and so that led to like scar tissue, and it damaged her ureters on her kidneys. So it's just been a mess. So now it's become a major kidney issue. And
Mm,
I'm not trying to share too much, but her kidneys aren't functioning correctly because of the scar tissue of where that happened, and so now they're going to have another surgery, which is really invasive and very difficult, and a long recovery. And so she's in a ton of pain right now. And so I moved my office home. Our elders at our church allowed us that grace during this
that's
time,
good.
as she prepares for surgery. So it's been like a 3-year battle. So I'm home. I'm able to study from home. I pace my yard with phone calls, and able to get out when I can. But she's on a lot of medication, and so it's been a battle. It's been a battle to navigate. My wife deeply battling health issues, and carrying the weight of ministry, and so it's been a difficult battle, and that's just real life. Between doctor's
Yeah.
visits and surgeons and medicine, and there's a lot of moments where it's just fear, then it's grace, and you watching your spouse suffer, and that does something to you because as a
Yeah.
husband you can't fix it. But as a pastor, I've had to learn I'm a husband first, and
Yeah.
ministry is secondary. It has to be secondary. You shouldn't stand in a pulpit if you can't stand by your wife's side first. And
Mm, that's
I've had
good.
to learn. I've had to learn to really be willing in my heart to even understand that if I needed to step aside for my wife's matters, if I need, that needs to be my priority. And suffering, watching your wife suffering, it's a unique thing. It strips away the illusion of that we as pastors have it all together, or that we're strong, or that we're like above the struggles.
Yeah.
It humbles you, and it reminds you and your congregation that you have cracks, you have flaws, you're not superhuman. But there's a gift in it all. It's allowed me to be a more compassionate pastor, I think, to understand, especially in the older part of the congregation that are severely struggling with health issues. It allows me to be more compassionate, and it's really just driven me deeper into prayer, and realizing that I can't do it all. I can't hold it all together. I don't have the strength. I don't have the ability, and I can't burn myself out. And I know it's cliche, but you can't sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry.
Yeah.
God's called me to love my wife and love my family first, and to be willing to let that go. And pain pushes you in two ways. I always say it pushes you either into self-reliance or into surrender. And
Mm, yeah.
I've been learning the hard way and slowly. And I wish I could say, "Oh yeah, I fully get it," and I'm just fully surrendered to whatever the Lord wants. But my heart still wrestles. But I'm trying to really surrender all of that and to be there for my wife the best that I can, and make changes the best that I can to serve her and my boys best. So that's why you'll hear screaming in the background today.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny as you have the progression as you have your children, because Like, I don't know how it was for you, but for my first one, it was like I was scared to death. I didn't want to see anything. I stood up by my wife's head and like held her hand and encouraged her the whole time. And then by my third, it was like, okay, I know exactly what to expect. As far as I'm concerned, not a big deal. Now, obviously, she's in a bunch of pain and all that. But for my third, my wife labored like 10 or 12 hours. And then my daughter, Abigail, turned breech right before time to deliver. And so doctor comes in, says, give me an ultrasound machine now. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've never heard this before in this moment. And then they rush her out to an emergency C-section. And I remember sitting in that room by myself before they took me in to be with her for the surgery, like alone. And this is a thing like a lot of people don't understand. Like when you're the pastor, you're the guy everybody calls when they're having an emergency, when they need someone. When you're the pastor, you have no one to call. And I'm sitting there alone and I'm just like, God's talking to me and I'm afraid. And he's basically like, hey, if it's just me and you, is that enough? And I'm like, it's enough. Yeah. So I remember those feelings for me. What were the kind of the thoughts and feelings going through in your mind as your wife's rushed off to an emergency surgery in that moment?
Yeah, I think it's recognizing that it's out of your control. And I think as pastors,
Yeah.
we're so used to being everyone kind of looks to us and things. We try to have things under control, but sitting in that room and them coming in and telling me that I'm more likely that my wife might not make it, I want to say that I had a really spiritual response, but I responded with, God, we're trying to serve you. God, we're trying our best to raise our kids for you. We're trying our best to serve God and do everything we can to serve you the best we can. And why are you going to take my wife? Why, the possibility of losing our son during that. And I'm sitting there holding my newborn son and my wife is bleeding out in the operating room. And my heart really went to why, and that was really a test of my faith. And so I sat there for I think it was like 7 hours, not sure how she was going to do, if she was going to make it. So I realized in that moment that strength isn't being able to carry yourself by yourself. It's really found that God carries you. And that was an important lesson because ministry is many times the same way. Like, God, so much of it is out of my control. I can't control what people say, think, do. But to learn that God carries you through it all, no matter the most difficult, darkest moments and the most difficult days, God carries you through. And I don't want it to sound like that's a cliche or something, but became a reality. So that was an important thing I learned during that it's not about my strength, my ability, to have it all together or to even control the emotions in that, but just the only thing I could do is trust that God was going to carry me through. So it was tough, man. I still kind of we can't even watch like Netflix shows about hospitals without my wife tearing up or, me getting like, a response to it. So it was a pretty traumatic event.
Yeah. And I identify with exactly what you're saying. For us, it was because of that situation, my wife developed some bleeding, and we had no money. We were severely underpaid leading this church, and so no insurance. We go to a free clinic, and my wife explains kind of what's happening, and I think we got a doctor who was, I don't know if they were serving time there or what the situation was, but there was not a lot of concern for us or for her and what she was going through. And so they basically said, oh, you can live like this. It's fine. And so for 13 years, my wife lived like that. But over time, the bleeding got progressively worse. And until a day came where, 2021, this is just a few years ago, I literally carried her into the emergency room, and there was the whole time it was there a bunch of COVID stuff, so I couldn't stay there with her in the night. And I would remember just driving home and on repeat listening to Tasha Layton's song, Into the Sea. And it's just over and over hearing those words singing, it's going to be okay. Like no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. But you're right. In those moments is where you really feel like God is carrying you. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about your situation in your church is that they seem to be very gracious and understanding of where you need to be at this time. So for pastors and ministry leaders who are listening to this, what are some of the helpful, encouraging, supportive things that your church has and are doing for you during this time so that you can be there for your wife and your family?
Yeah, I am so thankful for our church. No church is perfect, but our church really says family first, and they want to see that lived out by their pastors. Like I've had people in my congregation say, "Pastor, we think you're doing too much, and you need to be home more." And I'm like, usually you don't get that kind of response, but one
Not a
of our,
lot. Yeah.
you know, and that's been such a grace in our lives. And but we have elders, an elder team, a couple of guys that really understand they're spiritual men, and their relationship with their wives is just unbelievable. And to see this and to hear their stories, and they've been such a grace to us, and really encouraging me to be home and take the time that you need. And one of them said that, this is a great thing that helped me. He goes, "James, your ministry is not this sprint. It's not let's get as much done as we possibly can and have the biggest events and get the most people." He goes, "This is a marathon. This is this is an oak tree that we want to build on the foundation of God's word. And in this season, there's different seasons, but in this season, you need to prioritize your wife and your family at this time. And there might be a different season when you can prioritize other things, but right now you need to prioritize this." And that was hard for me. I'm not just being transparent, because I'm the type
Yeah.
of the visionary type of guy, the type A. Let's go get it. Let's go get it done. Let's build. Let's grow. And the biggest idol that I had to deal with my heart is and this maybe sounds bad, but my uselessness. Like I had an
Yeah.
idol of being useful, and like I would struggle with not being in the office and not being in the meetings and not being at every hospital visit, and I had to remove that. God removed that. That was a deep-seated idol that I had in my heart of ministry. And it wasn't necessarily, I could tell you all the things, like I'm not going to neglect my family for my ministry. But even when I came home, I still struggled. Like I'm not there. Everything's going to be okay? Like having this idol of usefulness, where I had an identity kind of wrapped up into being useful, or I guess needed, maybe.
Sure.
But it was
Yeah.
an idol, man. It was an idol that God really just destroyed in my heart. That even if I never preached another sermon, if I never did another thing, that He was enough. And honestly, usefulness was one of the idols that God had to remove in my heart from this.
Um, how would you say you're personally navigating this tension of carrying pastoral responsibilities along with being a husband, a caregiver, a father in this season of life?
Now, my honest answer,
Yeah.
it's every day. I talked to my wife yesterday, especially we're going through a difficult season in our church with issues with a couple families, and difficulties in trying to navigate like a kind of like a very tension point, lots of meetings and lots of phone calls. And my wife has lots of appointments, and my kids are homeschooled, and then you're trying to navigate all these things. And I said, sometimes, like last night, well, I was on the phone or texting someone to almost 11 o'clock at night. And then my son, I think I shared in one of the messenger groups, the guys in my area, I think I shared in the messenger group, my son personally, since this, has developed a struggle with some mental health. And so then he's coming in, and he's talking to him at 11 o'clock at night. And after all that was done, I said, I just feel like I'm pulled in so many different directions
Yeah.
but ultimately, I have to let go. God is showing me that I'm not God. I'm not Him. I'm not the one that holds it all together. I'm not the one that holds my church together. I'm not He doesn't need me. He can do it without me. And honestly, it's been awesome and super humbling to watch God use men and different women in our church to step up to these things. And it's removed an idol in my heart. Not all of it, but it's removing that idol from my heart. And I've realized that it's okay. I don't have to be strong. I don't have to have it all together. And it allows me to, I think, to lead with transparency and,
Yeah.
and honesty, that I don't have to maintain this image publicly. That the same grace that we preach about is the same grace that we give to ourselves. We just are, as pastors, we don't have to be superhuman. We don't have to maintain this great image in people's eyes, that we literally just need to be faithful. And sometimes faithfulness looks like stopping. Faithfulness looks like slowing down. Faithfulness looks like resting. Faithfulness looks like admitting to your church and to your elders or your leadership team that you're not okay, your family's not okay. And I think that is a part of faithfulness. Faithfulness isn't just maintaining this image of strength publicly. It's being able to be transparent privately. And that's what I've learned, and it's been humbling for me.
So, I know you pastor a medium, large size church, and so you're not the only staff person. Can you kind of give some ideas for that pastor who's literally the only pastor for a small church of how they can equip and empower people to step up in seasons where they need to step back? So whether that's empowering somebody to make hospital visits or to preach, or how can they fill in some of those responsibilities at seasons that they really need to step back and care for family?
Yeah, I think transparency with the congregation. One of our core values as a pastor has always been transparency. From even when we started with, a handful of people to where we are now, one thing I always said is transparency. So we've always led from that, and we've always sat down our congregation, and we've always shared exactly where we're at. And I think what that does is it tears down walls, these walls of image or these walls of expectations that they may have. And if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and transparent with your congregation, I think that does more than anything to help people step up. But if you try to maintain this strength and come across like very professional CEO mindedness and make it rigid, I think humbleness, transparency, honesty is the best way to lead a congregation. And so I always recommend, guys, have a meeting and just pour out your heart. Let them see your brokenness. Let them see your tears. Let your wife talk and let them see her, her brokenness over this, and ask them, we need to become a body here, and that was one of the best things. It's fearful because you're worried about, as a pastor, everyone's going to judge you, and, everyone has an essential oil that they're going to try to sell you.
Yes.
Miraculously heal you,
you're right.
Hey, have you tried this essential oil? Those are
Trust
things
me, we've tried them all. Yes, we've tried them all.
Those people are going to say stuff and they're going to misunderstand, but that does not give you a reason to not be transparent with them. And so I always say, just be transparent and just say, our family needs your help in this moment. And I promise you that transparency, honesty, brokenness is such a greater motivator than any sermon that you could give that talks about stepping up or utilizing your spiritual gifts. Let them see your brokenness, your pain, and be vulnerable with them.
Yeah, and I've experienced that firsthand. I remember when Lysandra had her life-saving surgery, and we were able to get her home finally to rest and to recover there. A couple days later, Sunday rolls around, and I remember sitting. I got a chair and I sat and just spent that 45 minutes telling our church everything that had transpired over the last few days, and weeping and pouring out my heart. And it's probably one of the more memorable conversations, sermons, whatever you want to call it, that people in the room remember. It's because they got to see behind the professional veil and see exactly who we were and what we were going through. So great advice on being open and vulnerable.
You would be amazed at who steps up in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to let go, but the people that will step up are some of those, I remember in some of them were our biggest critics, but our
Mm-hmm.
the brokenness and the vulnerability really tore down some of that, because we had to do that in a moment where we were facing some criticism. And some of our heaviest critics, when they saw both of our brokenness over it, became some of our biggest supporters and leaders now to today. So you got to trust that God will work through your vulnerability and transparency.
Yeah, because people often, if they've never led a church, they have no idea what it's like, and so they have their
Mm-hmm.
own perception about who a pastor is and everything else. But in moments like this, then they get to see like, oh, he's just a husband like I am. Like she's a wife and a mother like I am. They're just real people.
Yeah.
But you're right. People will and do step up in amazing ways, and it just reminds us once again that hey, it's Jesus' church, and He can take care of it. He knew ahead of time we were going to go through these health situations, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so he has exactly put in our churches exactly who needs to be there to help lead and guide His church forward, even
Yeah.
if we have to take a step back.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you have done is during this season, you've had a lot going on in your church, a lot going on with your family, and so you recently took an extended kind of vacation away. Um, kind of explain why all that came about, how it came about, and what you guys did.
Yeah, our congregation allowed us to get away for about 4 weeks, and we were able to spend some time up in northern Michigan on Lake Michigan, my favorite place. It's where people from Ohio go to vacation. So if
Nice.
anyone's, I know Tony down from there is gonna, yeah, Tony and Paul
Oh
and all
yeah,
that, they're gonna get a
all
kick
those
out of that. But
Buckeye fans. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, I had to just take a sheep shot. Um, but we were able to get away for a while, and you know, taking a Sabbath or a rest is not about stopping. It's not about slowing it down. It's about trusting. And I think we
yeah,
lose sight of that. It's not like, oh, I need to take a break. You don't need to take a break. You need to learn to trust. And
that's good.
when we take a Sabbath, it's really us saying, you're declaring not only to yourself but to God that I'm not the one that holds this world together. I'm not the one that holds this ministry together. I'm not the one that keeps everything going. You are. It's really it's a trust issue. And my busyness and my need to be involved in everything is really just pride disguised in spiritual pastoral clothes. I mean, who am I to think that I hold it all together or it's my ministry? And so not only is it a declaration for me to say, God, I'm
Yeah,
not the one that holds it all together, but it's also a declaration to my family of faith and trust and to my congregation. It gives them permission not only to see that, but to model it in their own marriages and their own
mm.
lives. And I think we have to do this as American pastors specifically. And I'm not just isolated, but there's an idol of being the output in American churches. Like how
Yeah,
much you output is your worth. It's how much you produce, how big your churches grow, how, it's all this output. And it's really an idol of productivity. And we struggle to slow down. We struggle to take breaks only to the point where we get to crisis. And then we get to a crisis point of burnout, and then we need to take a sabbatical. But this is something that you need to do. That not only is preventative, but it's also a declaration of you saying to God, "I trust you. You're going to hold it all
yeah,
together. It'll be fine." Um, so it's really finding our worth in Christ and not what we do and not how much we produce and not how big our churches are and how fast they grow or our influence or our social media influence or none of that is important. And it's our worth is found in Christ. And so it's good to Sabbath, to stop, to declare by faith that God, I trust you, but also allow yourself to enjoy God. Maybe I'm the only pastor that struggles with this, but sometimes in ministry, I get to a point where I struggle to enjoy the goodness of God in it. Does that make
yeah,
sense what I'm trying to say? I think
yeah.
we get caught up a lot of times in the preaching, the teaching, the counseling, the administration, the planning, the organizing, all the counseling, and we lose sight of really in our hearts of enjoying God again. I remember I go
Yeah.
back to when I was first saved, and I didn't have a ministry. I didn't never spend barely any time in the Bible, but my greatest joy was God. That I knew I was saved, and I knew He loved me. And you know how easy it is to lose that simplicity in your heart as a pastor.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I do on when I try to take a Sabbath is just get back to that point where of just really resting and finding that joy again. Because the best thing we can ever give to our congregation is not superior leadership skills. It's a healthy soul. You can't have a healthy church if you don't have a healthy soul. So that's what I try to be very intentional when I take a Sabbath like that. So not perfect and probably didn't come back as healthy as I wanted to be, but I think it's important for us to do that.
Yeah, and I know for me one of the biggest struggles is getting in the word just to commune with God personally. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of us who are preachers who communicate the word on a regular basis make this intentional switch where our default goes to looking for things to give to somebody else, but it happens. And so it is a constant battle for me personally. You talk about just, enjoying God. Like it's hard for me to get into the word and just enjoy it for the personal relationship side versus,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this would make a great sermon. This would be a good sermon series, like a great study to give to this person or that person for that situation.
Exactly.
And so I fight that all the time. So I don't think that you're alone. I think it's a common thing that we go through. And it's just an interesting transition that often happens with the pastors, at least that I've talked to. Now, your church has been pretty good about helping you out. We talked about this as well. What are some things, I don't know, maybe some things that you did or things that they just happen to pick up on that help them to see the value of Sabbath for you and, helping you become the healthiest, most fresh pastor that you can possibly be and the benefit that is for them as a congregation? Are there things that you did or were there somebody in your church that was kind of championing that for you?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get to that point? Because, like, I've never been on a Sabbath. I've never taken that extended period of away. I've never been in a church that has done that or has that established. I need to work on doing that here. So, what did you do?
Well, I think initially we led that culturally from the beginning. We kind of set the tone when we came on and we brought our staff on that my family's pastor, he takes all of July off and I take most of August off. So something that we tried to establish early on, a culture of rest. And we tell our staff that, no, we don't necessarily want you to have office hours, but we want you to prioritize your family. And this is kind of what we're expecting you to do. So we tried to lead initially from a culture of rest and instill that culture from the beginning. But there has been some instrumental spiritual men and families in our church that not only accept that, but promote that. And so but those guys have been people that we're very close with and are very vulnerable with, that know the ins and outs of our family, that can share our deepest pains, our struggles, our fears. So some of that comes from developing friendships in ministry from people in your church and being close to spiritual people that are mature and that love you, love your family, and that have influence in your congregation. And so I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of a culture that we tried to establish. And
Okay.
and so you'll hear like just yesterday, I talked to our family's pastor. He's been walking through kind of this difficult season, a situation that we're going through in our church, and he's been just battling, and it's wearing on him and his family. I said, man, take a couple days off and just turn your phone off. Just get away
Yeah.
with you and your wife and your family. And so those are like the little things that we do in our church, but it's also kind of a developed culture, I think, as well.
And I think that's so healthy, especially for the long term, not just for you, but for the church itself. And what a great time to get away right before your wife's getting ready to go into this very invasive surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Is that surgery scheduled already? I think we talked about this personally, but I don't remember when that's coming up.
Yeah, it's in the future. So she actually has an appointment here, and after I get off this call, so
Oh,
um,
really? Okay. All right.
she's we're gonna be learning a lot in the next couple weeks. So we don't have an
Okay.
exact date, so probably within 6 to 8 weeks.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
So we will definitely be praying for wisdom and guidance and all of that during these days ahead. Um, let's kind of transition a little bit. We're recording this. It's in September, and in August we just crossed 1 year of kind of the initial getting the network going, starting off just literally as a Facebook group. And I remember as we got things started, like when we would hit certain milestones of people joining the group. So like 50 people joined, and we were
yeah,
like, whoa, this is crazy. And then 100, and it's just like, can you believe what's happening? And here we are a year later, and we're at like 8.8 thousand, I think. What are your thoughts on just what God is doing in the last year since we've gotten this thing up and off the ground?
yeah. Well, I think it's a needed thing. I think it's by pastors. It's not some, I'm not trying to be mean, but we're nobodies,
Yeah, that's
and
true. I mean, true.
and I'm not. But I think it's a crisis that we all are recognizing in our churches. Like Barna just put out a poll. I think that 43% or 46% of pastors in the last year have considered quitting. I think 60, a high percentage, 60 some percent would consider themselves burned out or close to being burned out. And then there's a good percentage. I think that same group, I would have to maybe I could find the article and post it, the statistics, but another high percentage feel like they're completely isolated and alone. And so I think
Yeah.
as pastors, we're recognizing these pain points. Like this is not sustainable. And how do I network? I don't even have time to barely make it enough time for my wife and kids out of all the things, all the expectations that are expected of us. And that's really
Yeah.
changed too. That may be a whole nother topic we could cover about how the shift in American churches has the expectations of pastors and has shifted from, preacher, spiritual leader to CEO, visionary leader of global international ministries.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. You have to be a podcaster, and you have to do all of these things, the expectations that people have, and so I think pastors are carrying weights that we've never really seen, and so
Yeah.
and then denominationalism has failed. Denominationalism has really failed in a lot of creating these support systems for pastors, and so this is just a really a low. A platform where people can get in, they can find friends, they can develop friendships, and there's really nothing that's required of them other than just themselves and bring themselves to it. So,
Yeah, and it's I agree with you. It's definitely needed, and we're seeing that, and it's exciting to me to see how much has happened in such a short amount of time. I mean, where we kind of had our initial thoughts about how things were going to go, and it's like God was just like boom, like
yeah,
gave us so much more than I mean, you talk about more than we can ask or imagine. It's like I never thought we'd be here a year later at almost 9,000 people in the group with some of the things in the works already that we have in the works and have going. I'm just amazed and I'm excited for what's going to happen. So one of the things that we have going on right now is you're doing some training of national pastors in India over Zoom. Can you kind of fill people in who maybe aren't aware of that, like what you got going on, what you're leading them through, and kind of what your goal for that is in the future?
yeah. So our ministry is kind of unique with the Pastors Network. Not only do we want to help pastors become healthy and strengthen them and provide, it's not just a resource. It's just a place where we've got pastors can be strengthened and encouraged, and then secondly is developing relationships. I think you're really seeing I think denominationalism is coming to an end. I think more and more pastors are learning what theological triage is and first tier issues versus secondary and third tier issues, and realizing that
Yeah.
it's okay to agree on first tier issues and put aside for the sake of the advancement of the kingdom secondary and third tier issues. And
Yeah.
so that really allows denominations to kind of lose some power. And I think you're seeing that, especially all the different splits. You see Presbyterians and Methodists and SBC and those independent Baptists have never been in a denomination, but you've been seeing some straying away from that. I'll probably get a lot of flack.
I mean, it is a denomination without them being. They wouldn't say it, but it is. I mean,
Yeah,
when you all do the same thing and agree the same thing, it's like it's a denomination. But
or if you ask, which college did you come from? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I think you're seeing, okay, where do I find community? Where do I find a group of pastors that, and we're realizing that these differences aren't really that big. And so, the second heart that we have is to develop a big table that really builds bridges where walls used to be. And so I think those silos are coming down of my church is the only right church. And we realize that the kingdom of God is big enough that we don't need to be tripping over each other, that we really can find some beauty in the uniqueness of all of our ministries and gifts. And so I think that is, but then the goal is, we can't just gather around and those are all good things, but we're on mission and we need to be on mission. I think the true power of the network is what can we do together? And I think the third biggest pain point, I think all pastors would recognize this, is the state of American missions. Is that I think when Ben White came to our church, he used a statistic, and I fact checked him as he was talking about it, so he's right on this. But he said, in 2004 there was like 1 million missionaries, 1 million plus, 1,000,002 or 1,000,003, somewhere around there. He says now today there's only 400,000 missionaries around the world. And then most missionaries that actually get to the field, not only is there a tremendous cost in getting to the field, but most missionaries don't finish their first term on the field. And then there's more missionaries coming home than we are sending. So, I mean, this is like a major problem. From stewardship standpoint to burnout standpoint. So our desire was to build a network that is a part of the global church that recognizes that the church is so much bigger than America, so much bigger than us American pastors, and the need to take Americanized cultural Christianity and transplant that, all around the world. So our heart here is to identify and vet national leaders that are training other pastors, training other leaders in remote regions, that we can actually empower through our relationships, through strengthening pastors and building relationships. We can do something that is really powerful in supporting these national pastors that through finances, through prayer, through training, all kinds of stuff, and the ability with technology. And so right now at the network, we have 2 partners that are actually doing phenomenal stuff. You see David Livingston in India that is, he has 200 plus national pastors that he works with, that he trains, and they're planting churches all over in the jungles of India. And so it's just phenomenal. And then we have a regular Zoom meeting where these pastors from jungle regions that have no theological training get to jump on. And you joined me on one, and you get to see the theological training. And these guys are just soaking it up. We're able to do that from just taking an hour a week to train. And then in Thailand, Yupo, he is training leaders especially in northern Thailand and among the tribes of northern Thailand, the Karen tribe, the Lahu tribe, the Lisu tribe, and so there's seminaries deep in these jungles, and they're basically taking men and they're training them, and then they're sending them across the border into a closed country of Myanmar, on the border of northern Thailand and in Myanmar, that is just war-torn. And it is unbelievable. And there's very little Western influence among them. And so we get to participate in that. And we're actually taking a trip next July. Well, any guys that want to join, we'll talk a little bit about that. But we're going to be taking a trip of the pastors here, a network. If you guys would like to go, we're going to go see Yupo. And there's a conference of national pastors and leaders. And we'll get to be a part of that and what they're doing, and see some of the ministries and see some of the seminaries and the training institutions and how they're sending them. It's really gospel work at the ends of the earth. So it's awesome. It's awesome. So.
Well, and it
There's
was it.
crises in the church in America, but there's a crisis on the foreign field too. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. I was just saying, like, sitting in on the Zoom call with the pastors in India, just so eye opening to see the commitment that they have to, you know, serve Jesus, to lead people to Jesus, to learn and to grow. And what is the curriculum that you're kind of walking them through? Is that something you developed yourself? Did you get it from somewhere? I don't remember.
Yeah, I've developed some of it, but then there's a book called The 1 Year Seminary, and I could share the resource when we share the video. But it's basically a year of seminary, just the basic tenets, the gospel. So our main goal is within a year of doing these videos that these guys in the remote regions are able to understand the big picture of the Bible, understand how all the stories kind of align, and understand that this has got all of these stories are painting the picture of God's great plan of redemption of mankind. And so it really keeps them gospel focused, Jesus centered, and there's a lot of confusion about all the different stories. So when they see that it's a big picture, and so then we walk them through about a 1 year Bible seminary. So it's pretty cool.
It is cool, and it just reminds me of how much we take for granted over here in the U.S. with our, I grew up in church. And so here you have people who are coming to faith in Jesus, and God is working in their heart to reach others and to start a congregation where there isn't a congregation, and they don't necessarily know all the information yet. It kind of reminds me of the whole Apollos situation where it's like he knew up to a certain point, and he had these wonderful people, Aquila and Priscilla, who came alongside and said, "Hey, let me kind of give you some further training on what's happened to this guy called Jesus and all this stuff." And so having the ability to do that, literally doing global missions right here from where we are. And
Yeah.
I think the opportunity to do that is only going to grow as we move forward with the network.
Mm-hmm. When you any of you guys that want to get involved in this, several of you have reached out like, how do I get involved? Once you dip your toe in with training national pastors, you'll realize it is unbelievable the depth and the need among this field. Like every pastor that's listening to this could identify and find a national pastor that they could train, disciple, equip, even over Zoom. And then we could even help with that.
Yeah.
And I know Calvin Hauser with Refreshed Ministry Network is great at that too. So, I mean, the need is unbelievable. I personally believe that this is the future of missions.
Yeah.
I think sending Americans over is going to be continue to be a decline because I don't think there's as many places that are needing pioneering work. That there's a lot of ministries that have happened over the last 100 years that we can really build on top of that with training and equipping national pastors. So I think it's really going to be the future of missions.
Yeah, I have a good friend of mine, Dave Tyndall, who he's on staff at First Baptist Gulf Shores, Alabama, and he once a week gets on with national pastors in the Congo. And so right now they're going through verse by verse studying the First and Second Peter, and so the opportunity is there for all of us. And if you want help with that, we just reach out to us. We'd be glad to kind of help you be able to do that, find resources and all that kind of stuff. So you're right, the opportunity is there. But I think as you mentioned, man, what an opportunity in person to do some training as well. And you mentioned the missions trip coming up in July. I know my wife and I plan to go. We got a handful of people already committed saying they're ready to go. Can you kind of give us some insight and some information for those who say, that sounds exactly what I want to be doing or I need to be doing? How can they get a hold of you and get some more information about what that's going to be like? When is it and all the info?
Yeah, so every year in Thailand, they have a national pastors conference. UPO, our national partner, he kind of facilitates and leads the whole thing. And there will be anywhere from 700 leaders to 1,200 leaders that will come from all over Thailand, Philippines, Southeast Asia, up to Vietnam, Myanmar. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And there will be a 2-day conference that we'll be able to just pour into leaders there, so we'll be there. It'll be in Chiang Mai, so it's a pretty well visited town. It's probably the international hub of Southeast Asia, and we'll be there. But then we'll be able to go and help pastors connect with other ministries. So there's so many ministries among these tribal people that are national. They have no one to support them. They have no one to help them. There's orphanages. There's boarding schools. There's churches in these regions. These individual pastors, and we'll see a bunch of them. And you'll be able to. My heart is to be able to. The pastors connection, where a lot of this is birthed, is being able not only connect pastors here in the States, but be able to connect pastors here in the States with pastors in the foreign field that are national pastors, and help them build relationships and to build those bridges. And so that's our real heartbeat behind it. So.
Well, and what's great is like we make those connections, and the dollar that you would send over there will go so much further than, say, if you supported and don't get me wrong, we support American missionaries all over the place as well, but the dollar doesn't go as far with going that route. So if you literally go straight to a source of a national pastor or a ministry that you can trust, it's like that dollar makes such a huge impact in the hearts and the lives and the gospel work there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't think have we said when that's going to be? July.
But
I remember what the dates are.
We'll have to look at tickets and prices. It's going to be probably the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th of July of next year. So we'll be there. There's 2 days on each side of travel. Obviously, 2 days to get there, 2 days to get back of pretty much travel. And so the rest of the time will be in ministry serving in northern Thailand. So.
Awesome. So second week of July, mark your calendars now. If that's something that you're interested in, James is going to give his email address as we get ready to close out in a few minutes here, so you can reach out to him and begin that process of seeing if we can make it work for you to come with us. Obviously, with the situation of the travel and all that, we've got a limited number of people that we can bring, but we'd love for you to be a part of that trip. Appreciate James heading that up. Speaking of next year, so we got the missions trip in July. We're working on a national summit next year for Pastors Connection Network. October 8th and 9th, tentatively scheduled right now to be in, I believe it's Hilliard, Ohio. Anthony Fusco at Northwest Bible has said that we can use his facility. I know, James, it's in Ohio. It's outside of Columbus. It'll be a hard trip for you to make, I'm sure, but looking forward to that time as well. And this is one of those things where it's like, hey, we're a year in now. We're already planning for this to happen, and I'm just amazed at what God is allowing us to do, to be a part of. And we're literally scratching the surface. And I think in some upcoming conversations, James and I are going to have some other things we're going to be able to share with you that we are so excited about. Doing some more regional meetups where we can just connect, get to know guys in your area. And then, James, you're going to be doing some kind of informal get-togethers over Zoom. You want to kind of give us what your thoughts or what you're thinking and tentatively planning for that?
Yeah, the idea is just maybe, I know as pastors we have a loaded schedule, but I think just getting times where it's good to have resources and it's good to have trainings like we do. You always facilitate the trainings, but sometimes where it's just guys to get together, grab a cup of coffee, maybe it's early in the morning, and just be able to talk, vent, talk about difficulties, struggles, pray with each other. Just a kind of a relaxed time where we could just be each other's friends. And some guys are so, I talk to guys on their group in Northeast and there's no one near them, but something like that would be, guys out West that are distant from other pastors, to have facilitate maybe even an online place where they could just grab a cup of coffee and build friendships and relationships with other pastors.
Yeah, such a needed thing. And so that'll be a great time together. Keep watch on the Facebook group and page as we get ready to announce that. If you haven't yet jumped on one of our monthly Zoom calls, it's free, completely free. We have somebody come in and kind of give some thoughts and some instruction on a particular topic. Then we open it up for questions or suggestions and conversations, kind of like a round table about whatever the topic may be. I know James is going to be talking with us this month, so we're in September. Fourth Thursday of the month, going to be talking about church revitalization. Be a good conversation, so come ready with all of your experience, your tips, your questions, your scenarios. It's always a good time together, and it's free. And so I encourage you to hop on for that. I'm so thankful to be a part of this, James. I think it's so cool what God has allowed us to do, and the fact that you and I literally never had, to my knowledge, never had one conversation before we started this. But you've quickly become such a great friend of mine, and I'm excited to do this with you and excited for what the future has in store for us. We're just getting started.
Yeah, man. It's cool. It's awesome to see what God does, and I'm glad to do it with you. Wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. You're the only one that can handle my craziness.
Right? Yeah, we're a good match for sure. We're a good match for sure. Yeah. What's the email? People can ask questions if they want to know about the missions trip or, training national pastors over Zoom. How can they get a hold of you, James?
Yeah, my personal email is pastorjbell206@gmail.com. So that's my personal email. It kind of directs you away from the church website. So that's my personal email. So you just send me an email, and then we can even just set up a time to talk back and forth and see if this would be a good trip. We have other trips that we would like to consider in the future too. So if not this, we can also even have you jump on a Zoom call, and you can just kind of catch the heart of training national pastors. So as a pastor in America. So.
All right. You can reach us at the Pastors Connection Network by going to pastorsconnectionnetwork.com or finding us on Facebook at Pastors Connection Network. James, thank you for taking time out of your schedule and your life. I know personally you got a lot going on with the church and everything else. I just appreciate you being here with us and the journey we're on together. So thanks, man.
Yeah. I got 4 little boys kind of peeking through the door. They've been sliding paper airplane messages under the door.
I love it.
I got it. Yeah. So
I love it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on the Pastors Connection podcast. May you be inspired and equipped to lead with grace and purpose. Until we meet again.